Hi everyone, welcome. The last time we checked in on the mixed red worms, we gave them a very similar assortment of fruits and veggies out of the freezer. Last time I don't recall them getting coffee or a coffee filter to be their feeding zone indicator. I know they got napkins. A number of colorful large napkins were applied. I've got just a napkin I grabbed off the counter when I was in the kitchen getting them their food. But really quick, before we jump in here to feed these little guys, just some stats about the system in terms of how old it is. 154 days old now. It's been 12 days since we last checked in on these guys, and at that point they received feeding number 12. And now we're coming in here with feeding number 13. And you know, 150 some odd days ago, if the system was originally populated with 3,000 or more worms, then there is always that possibility that the worms have been getting friendly with one another and procreating, which would be kind of nice. A lot of times when I find worms hanging out on the top covering plastics that I use, I could just fold them over, but this top covering plastic is affixed to the cardboard shade, so I figured it just might be easier to evict the little wormies before they freak out and get themselves into trouble. Alright, so I guess the main topic here, the whole thing about the bedding being made out of twine is what makes this system unique. I've definitely composted twine in the past, but I've never built an entire system's bedding out of twine. And after 150 days, I've already had some people commenting how they somehow sense that the twine appears to be breaking down. You know, when this system started out and you just, really all you're dealing with is a bunch of rope. Some of it is thinner, like string type twine, but there's other portions of it that are also quite, thick chunks. It's just amazing how readily this stuff breaks. I didn't think that I'd be able to tear this thing away so easily. Maybe it was already like a strained spot there too. I think I just broke a chunk of this rope off. Oh, that's nice. That's good to see. Alrighty. Perhaps that's a bit much to expect from this really thick stuff. But, so I guess what I was trying to say was, in the very beginning, this rope and string and everything was all like just a big wad. And I'd be able to reach down here and like kind of almost pick up the entire bedding and lift it up out of our way to peek what was happening beneath it. And to a certain degree, it seems like I'm still able to do that, but it also seems at this point that I could almost break away with a handful, making me almost want to do a little bit of tilling around. I kind of like this idea. Let's see if we could do a similar grabbing of the material over in this corner and see what comes up. Ooh, okay, well that's something I got to be careful of. I've always got this sort of tendency to create these little catapults one way or another. The catapult just manages to form. Alright, so I guess the whole thing here was in the beginning we had excavated, kind of had to pull the rope apart from being all tangled together into a distinct hole in the middle into which we could feed every time going forward, which has been really nice. But now I'm starting to wonder if we're really required anymore to keep going back to our hole that we dug in the very, very beginning and have continued to use all along. Because it is starting to seem like now the material is starting to give enough that we can actually excavate little spots here and there. And speaking about excavating little spots, I just excavated feeding zone number 1 of 3. Because over the past few check-ins, we've been trying to distribute the foods that we give them. So like, we would always put the food in the middle, but like if I were to put them along these 2 edges along here, one feeding, the next feeding I would put them along these outer edges over here. And I can't remember now. I should have prepared better. Perhaps review the video a little bit more carefully, because I did review the video, but it escapes me right now where we fed. I don't know why I somehow thought that it might have been along this outer edge, these longer edges last time. But I didn't really see any leftovers, and I'm pretty sure we threw a couple good-sized napkins in with the food, leading me to think that if that was the spot where we fed, we'd probably see a little bit of leftover napkin. But my predictions in the worm bins are often kind of a crapshoot, 50-50 sometimes, coin toss. A lot of times a totally sensible expectation ends up being completely different. I mean, on that side we kind of got caught up in just being able to actually lift up and separate a large fragment of this bedding, which appears to be the case here too. But we didn't really get a chance to examine that outer edge as if we were looking for the last feeding zone. But here we can actually go at it looking into this edge as if it might have been the feeding zone last time. You know, not even so sure it's all that important at this point, you know, because the reason I kept alternating the feeding zones like that was because I wanted the worms moving throughout the material and feeling really comfortable doing so. So to lure them into various sections of the system, I would just keep switching up where the food was being located. But at this point, I think we can start treating the system a little bit more like an everyday bin, with the bedding being a little bit more forgiving in terms of, you know, the material not being all latched together and incapable of being excavated or having a hole dug in it anymore. It's actually gotten to that point, and I really wasn't expecting that, which is kind of cool. Kind of a nice little turn of events here in the bin constructed out of twine. All right, we did encounter one or two leftovers from the last feeding, such as this orange peel right here. There's even a little bit of orange right in it, so this might have been a whole orange or something. I'm not quite sure. And then this was like the shell of something, perhaps avocado. I'm not sure. But I'm starting to, oh, obviously this thing here, most people can recognize that as a pumpkin stem. But other than those couple things, I don't think we're finding too many leftovers. Oh, another pumpkin stem. Okay. Pumpkin stems are popular here. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think. What do we do? Perhaps we'll begin just by dropping a little bit of food into the middle, as we always do. And then we'll just randomly pick which outer edge we're going to feed, and hopefully it'll be the one that was not fed last time. Although it probably doesn't matter. Regardless, I still like the idea of dispersing the foods for them into various locations throughout the bin and kind of spurring on traffic in different locations too. So threw that napkin in there, a banana peel, a few leaves, I guess, of some, maybe like a head of cauliflower or something, and a couple of the little bits and pieces of stuff. Why don't we throw the coffee in there too, because there sure ain't a lot of it. And that's the center feeding. We might as well put all these leftovers to all the slow composting and leftover foods from previous feedings. Drop that all right into there. And at this point, I remember there was a diagram. I drew a diagram. It showed a picture like this, showing that's probably where we last fed, meaning we probably fed out here. So I'm going to take a chance and say, you know, if we feed on these shorter edges that are farther from one another, then that will be the proper next place to drop food, following our alternating pattern based on who got fed on the edges last. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Okay. A little bit of bedding in here for them too. And maybe that's the reason I don't feed on the edges, because I don't have to be so careful about aim and getting all the bedding into the bin rather than spilling it all over the sides. And perhaps a little bit of banana peel on one side for them over there. If I could just tear it. And a little bit for them over there as well. And kind of share the assortment a little bit. And, you know, I've got my grid here. We didn't put any into the food that was placed into the center, but at least we threw a little bit on the outer edges. And man, oh man, this is so cool. We're going to top off just the same as we did last time. Because besides having my prepared bedding that we were pretty generous with in the feeding zones, I've also got my freshly restocked supply of leaves. And that was kind of cool too. When we first came in here, we found all these leaves resting out on the top surface. And it was kind of cool blending it all in, incorporating it into the surrounding materials. But it didn't really matter that it was out there, because the worms just cruised right past it to get at this thing and the moisture that was collecting on it. So the leaves were definitely something that the worms were into. And you know, before we cover up, even though we've got 3 feeding zones right now, we'll just mark where the center one was for good luck. All right, everyone, that's it for the check-in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.